After securing grant funding, the work of completing the project and administering the grant begins. If you haven't administered a grant in the past, keep listening to learn what is involved. Let's clarify what is meant by grant administration. Put simply, grant administration is filling out the paperwork to receive reimbursement for your project expenses. It's important to remember that most grants reimburse eligible project expenses. That is, the community will select a contractor and pay them for their work. Then, documentation must be submitted to the grant agency showing the quantity, unit cost, and requested reimbursement for each item. Also, most grant agencies require quarterly reports documenting the progress made on the project during the previous quarter and the anticipated work for the next quarter. Once the project is finished, closeout paperwork must be submitted. This paperwork may include final reimbursement requests, a final report, an operation and maintenance manual, and completion of various forms. The grant agency may also require additional reporting, such as pollutant load reduction or cost-effectiveness calculations. Depending on the length and complexity of the project, the time required to manage a grant will vary. As the project progresses and milestones are reached, the amount of time required for grant administration will increase. I usually schedule 3 to 4 days at the end of each month for grant administration. For those with less experience or more complex reporting requirements, I recommend setting aside a full week each month. This additional workload can be challenging to fit into already busy schedules. Not to mention that inexperienced staff can make mistakes that could put their funding at risk. Let me give you an example. I worked with a community that handled its own grant administration. During their project, there was a change in staff at the grant agency. The new reviewer discovered that previous reimbursement requests did not have sufficient documentation. As a result, the community was asked to return $5 million. Fortunately, the community was able to address the issue and did not have to return the money, but it was a very stressful situation for my client that could have been prevented. While we're on the topic of problems to be avoided, let's discuss one of the most common grant administration problems I see. You will save a lot of headaches if the pay items in your contractor's bid match the line items in the grant. This will make the paperwork much more straightforward and reduce questions from the grant agency. Having to rework the contractor's invoices to match the line items in the grant when submitting your request for reimbursement might mean those items are ineligible. An experienced grant administrator can help you avoid these problems or at least prepare for them if they cannot be avoided. Another advantage of having an experienced grant administrator is that you have someone on your side tracking your grant funds. A few months ago, I spoke to a community that wanted my help securing grant funding. While on the phone with them, I sent a few emails and discovered they had $2 million of unused grant funds. They had contacted me for help securing funding, unaware they already had funds waiting to be spent. The community had a change in staff and did not realize they still had money available. If they had hired a professional to handle the grant administration, this would not happen. If you need help, let's book a chat to see if a recent BRIC grant is in jeopardy without a grant administrator who specializes in this kind of work.